This RC Beginner Series is brought to you by Horizon Hobby. Hey, welcome to Flite Test. I'm Josh. This is Josh.
Hi.
And this is episode 5
yes.
of the Beginner Series. Last time we talked about taking off and landing, and now we're actually going to talk about how to fly in the air.
Yes, now hopefully by now, if you listened to us, you took it seriously, you've burned a few batteries and it was just nothing but hopping up in the air and landing. Now that's very crucial because all those corrections we were talking about, how you don't steer the plane, you correct the plane, bringing it back to level, keep it on the course. Now when we talk about left hand and right hand turns, you're going to do nothing but the same, but higher up in the air and at different times.
Right.
So basically every time you do a correction is nothing but taking an airplane from a certain attitude and bringing it back to level.
Now it's always good to have a buddy with you.
Yes.
And
buddy.
if you have the capability to do the buddy box with an experienced pilot, that's always a good deal. But if you don't, it's good to have a buddy anyway.
It's good to have a buddy. And also for hand launching planes too, it's always nice not to try to have to launch your own airplane and catch the sticks really quickly.
Right.
You know, you can do that, but it's safer and more fun if you have a buddy helping you out.
Now, do you want to put this up in the air and we can talk about it while it's up there?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and do some angle things on the ground just to talk how some of the principles of stick movement are going to work.
Sure.
Now, when you're taking off and landing, if the plane wandered, you're correcting it back and forth, bringing it back to its heading, bringing it back on course. Now, when you're up in the air, there's going to be one key difference, and that is when you're in a turn and you want to stay in that turn, something's going to happen. Why don't you hold that airplane at an angle here? All right, so you're straight and level right now. We give it a turn, it starts turning. Now what's happening here?
It's angled this way.
And this wing is also banking down, it's also losing lift.
Right.
So what's gonna happen is the plane's gonna gradually fall. You gotta counteract that with something.
With the elevator?
Elevator, you got it. So whenever you put your plane into a turn, you're gonna simply bank it, and then you're gonna pull back on the elevator ever so slightly.
Okay.
Now, the more you bank, the more aggressive you have to get in the controls, but if you listen to our earlier episodes, minute turns, keep it down below 20 degrees, keep it simple.
Right, you ready to go?
One more thing.
Okay.
You're in a turn.
Yes.
You're done turning. What do you think you do?
You want to level back out.
You want to level back out. Every action requires an opposite action, right?
That's science.
That's science. You're going to want to give the opposite input until your wings come back to level. And one thing you don't want to do is when you input your turn, you don't want to just hold your rudder the whole entire time. That'll give you something called a spiral. So establish your bank angle. In this case with the rudder, it's 3-channel. You give your turn. Once you're done with the turn, neutralize, back with left rudder. And you can see the stick movements are about the width of your thumb.
Okay, very small.
Very, very small. All right, let's put it up in the air.
Okay, let's go. All right, so once we get it up in the air, the first thing we're gonna do is gather our orientation.
Yes, but also the first thing we want to do is make sure we always take off in the wind.
Yeah.
Now on our last episode, we were taking off this way, but the wind has changed since then.
Right.
It's now blowing this way, so we
want
to take off that way.
Okay.
You got it. And once again, throwing a simple couple blades of grass up in the air, watching which way it falls is very good. All right, our controls are all good. Our CG is done. Always do that before every flight. Ready to do this?
Let's go.
We're gonna take off. Now the only difference is we're gonna practice one turn at a time.
Okay.
All right, now if you get in trouble, obviously we'll be trying 2 turns, but our goal in this case is to try nothing but left-hand turns.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna take it off. We're gonna slowly climb. We're gonna do our left-hand turns. We're gonna try to do 90, level out, 90, level out, 90, level out. That constant movement will reinforce the muscle memory with your finger to always bring it back to level.
Let's see it.
All right, let's do this. All right, we're gonna take off. There we go. Now we're focusing. We're just gonna climb out a little bit. Nothing too drastic. We're gonna start our first input.
There you go.
There's left. We're gonna
Level
straighten out.
Okay.
And don't be too panicky. You can go a little bit of distance as long as you have room to fly. Go ahead and use up the sky.
It's a big sky.
All right, we're gonna do another left-hand input. Now, these constant 90-degree angles are very, very good because they also reinforce the pattern. And when you start getting into more advanced flying, you're gonna wanna fly a pattern, which means your downwind, your base leg, all those different features. Now, the wind's not gusting up too bad at all. It's very calm and very pleasant right now.
Right.
But what you don't wanna do is if there is a stronger wind, you don't wanna fly in the downwind area. Imagine if your line cuts just perfectly straight with you. You don't wanna fly past you. That way, if you make a mistake over here, the wind's gonna bring you back.
Okay.
All right?
Now, a good thing to remember all the time is to try to always maintain a level plane. And when you're flying away from yourself, it's pretty easy to know which way the sticks should go to control the direction of the plane. Left is left, right is right. But when you're flying back towards yourself, if you think of the plane as a tabletop and you want to keep that table level all the time, you want to point the stick at whatever side of the table is sagging, is hanging lower. So that will bring it back to right. So if you're flying towards yourself and you see that right wing, which is now on your left, is sagging down a little bit, you give a little bit of left input and it'll right itself.
Very true. Now there's another key thing too, is if say you get too far out and you lose orientation, what do you think you do there?
When I get too far away and I lose orientation, you can't tell if the plane is heading towards you or away from you, I make a turn, because I know if I put some left input and it goes to the left, that means that the plane is flying away from me. If I put some left input and I see the plane go to the right, that means that it's flying towards me.
Very cool, very cool. Now while we're up here nice and high, you don't want to get to the point where it's a speck, but you do want to carry it nice and high. Say you make a mistake, you'll have time to recover. Now if you do get in a bad situation, the first thing you want to do, chop the throttle, reduce your speed. That's going to slow down your speed, and then you can concentrate on getting it back to level. All right? Now while we're up nice and high, let's go ahead and do a stall. You always want to do your stalls into the wind. So we're going to go ahead and finish off our left-hand pattern. Yeah, so what we're doing now is we're checking the flight envelope of the plane, and that means the characteristics. And the characteristics of each plane is going to be different, so it's always good to check them out, and we're going to see what this one looks like in the stalls. All right, we're going to throttle back, we're going to pull back up until all the lift is depleted, and there you go, you can see it drop its wing. Right. Now the simplest way to recover from a stall is to relax. Take a deep breath, neutralize the controls, and slowly let it gain speed. And half the times, especially if you chose the right trainer plane, the plane's going to self-stabilize, and then you simply recover out of it. That's another good reason to take it up a few mistakes high. So you have plenty of time to adjust. So say you get in a steep stall, and now you're oscillating. Uh-oh. All right, see that? Stalling over and over again. Yes. Now what's not the answer? Throttle up. Throttle up, but also... elevator back. Yeah, if you keep holding your elevator back, it's just going to get worse and worse. That's an oscillating stall. The best thing to remember is at the top of that oscillating stall, a little burst of forward momentum, boop, or at the bottom of the oscillating stall. You give it a little bit of down? A little bit of down. Okay. Life is good. Now this is most predominant on gliders. Okay. Gliders like to fly, or motor gliders like the Park Zone Radian, those kind of planes. They'll get in oscillating stalls. These powered planes, if you simply relax, half the time it'll come out of it. Like I'm going to go ahead and put it in a nice steep stall attitude here. And I'm just going to relax. Look what happens. Yeah. Pretty easy, huh? Yeah, it came out by itself. Another method when you get into a steep oscillating stall is to simply turn out of it. Wait till it pitches up, a little bit of a turn input. It's gonna take away that energy. Gotcha. It's gonna recover nicely. Now another thing you want to check on your plane is the glide slope. So we'll get up nice and high, and we'll see what it's like when we chop the throttle and basically keep our hands off. And really, the only time you want to be at full throttle is when you're climbing. Or if you're trying to impress a girl. Or if you're doing a high-speed buzz. That'll come later. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and throttle back. And on a good trainer, you shouldn't have really any hardcore pitch issues, but you should notice that the nose drops down and that it's not climbing anymore for you. If you constantly try to hold it in the climbing attitude, you're gonna stall. And that's with no input right there. Yep, this is your glide slope right here. You can see it's going down in a nice gentle clip. Now, it's much better to take a walk of shame and land this far away from you and have it land with the motor off and the wings level. You'll almost always be okay unless you hit a house or a fence post or something like that. And when you do give throttle, right around the half throttle or point mark with the throttle, is where you're going to notice that the plane's going to naturally want to climb. Right. All right, especially on the Super Cub LP, half throttle is just cruising around. See, it's not losing altitude or gaining altitude. Yeah. You go a little higher, you can see it's naturally going up. Cool. All right, so once you've mastered the left-hand turns and the right-hand turns, right and left basically being both the same, you get to start challenging yourself. Okay. And I strongly recommend practice flying your patterns gaining altitude and losing altitude too. That's going to help you with taking off and landing. Yeah. And also setting up the both patterns from each one. But there's something called a figure eight. Yes. And that's exactly what it sounds like. You know what that is from when you did figure skating. Oh yes, exactly. Earlier in life. Figure eight is nothing but nice smooth turns to the left and then to the right, hopefully making where it crosses right in the middle. Like a giant 8 in the sky. This is going to teach you how to do constant turns and corrections at key moments. This is also going to help you set up for more advanced maneuvers. Practice doing your figure eights, climbing and losing altitude. So do your figure eight while you're carrying more throttle and gaining altitude. This is going to teach you about your envelope that you're flying in, and then losing altitude, and it's going to teach you how to maintain the envelope in your glide slope. Cool. Now what about high G maneuvers? High G maneuvers. You know what? High G maneuvers at this stage will mostly come when, say, you get in trouble. Yeah. Things you don't want to do is get panicky and just really hard back on the sticks. Like that. Like this. It's just not good. High G maneuver is where you have a lot of speed and you're changing the angle really, really quickly. Yeah. That's going to put the most stress on the airframe. The first thing is if you do notice yourself going something like straight down, throttle back and level out. Okay. Keep your controls nice and smooth. When in doubt, throttle out. Yes. Throttle back first and then slow recovery. And also, if you have a trainer, it's going to naturally want to recover itself. If you have enough altitude in your your mistakes high. If you just throttle back and relax, look at that, comes out itself.
Nice.
Isn't that beautiful?
Now, something you want to watch out for is weird sounds.
Yes, yes. Imagine, say your prop starts coming loose. You're going to hear a pitch change. Always keep note. If something sounds different all of a sudden, something's wrong. Get on coming back as quick as possible.
Like a shaky prop.
Yes.
Or maybe a servo making a weird noise. Or if you're hearing any sounds that sounds like something the fox would say, it's time to land.
One other key thing too is as you get more and more comfortable flying, you're going to fly in windier weather. Always keep in mind, if you're flying in windy weather, fly upwind. That way, if you do make a mistake, the plane's coming back towards you when it's blowing. If you fly downwind and you make a mistake, it's just going to keep on going away from you.
Keep sailing.
And also keep in mind, when you are flying in windier weather, when you're going into the wind, your controls are going to be more sensitive. When you turn with the wind, it's going to be just like you're driving a boat down the river going with it. The rudder's not going to have nearly as much effect.
Nice. And then also your power. If you're starting to lose power, you're noticing that the plane's flying slower, not responding the way that it should, get it down as soon as possible.
That's your battery running out.
Yeah.
And it's a good idea too to set timers too. If you have a radio that can set a timer, set it for under the amount of the battery you need. You know, say if you can possibly fly to 12, set it for 10 minutes. That way you're not going to hurt your battery. There's an 80% rule. Fly 80% of your capacity and your electronics are going to last the longest.
If you lose battery while you're up in the air, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yes. And
Gravity.
Also, if you start noticing that you're losing battery and you just go to full throttle, you're going to puff your battery. That's bad. Let's go ahead and bring it in for a landing. What do you say?
Sure. Nice, man.
Thanks.
Looking good. All right, so let's recap.
Yes.
First of all, you want to take off into the wind.
Always take off into the wind, and if you have to reposition yourself to take off into the wind so you can land and take off correctly, all the rules we talked in the previous episode still apply.
Once you get up there, get your orientation. Figure out how to go right and left. Get comfortable with the different directions.
And keep in mind that you never want to hold the stick in one spot constantly. You never want to just hold left or hold right. That's going to give you a spiral. You want to establish your bank angle and then use a little bit of elevator to bring you around too, if needed. On a real shallow bank, you may just only be holding just a little bit of rudder, but don't just hold it and forget about it.
And keep the plane level when you have it up there. If you're flying towards you, then your inputs are going to be reversed, but a good way to remember it is whichever wing is hanging down, you're going to point the stick towards that wing to bring it back to level.
Yep, your up and down is never going to change no matter what though.
Right.
Unless you're upside down, but that's next episode.
And when you're up in the air, you also want to learn the flight envelope, and that's the characteristics of your plane. What does it stall like? What does it glide like?
How does it feel at different speeds? Theoretically, if it's a good trainer, when you decrease throttle, it's going to go down on the nice glide slope. When you give it more throttle, past half, it should give you a nice gentle climb. Right in the middle on most trainers is nice level cruise. And you can also use your trims to set that up as well too.
If you get into trouble, it's too far away for you to gain orientation, just put it into a turn so that it doesn't stray too far, and keep an eye on landmarks so that you know where it goes down and you go find it.
Yes, and when you are far away, if you give it a turn and you don't know the orientation, you give it left and it goes right, you're heading towards you. Then just use your table analogy, bring it all the way home.
Right.
If left is left, right is right, it's going away from you, turn it around.
But it's always a good idea to keep it out in front of you where the wind is pushing it back towards you. That way, if you get into trouble, it brings it back naturally.
That's a good thing. All right, you ready to get up in the air, brother?
Yeah, my turn.
It's your turn. Let's swap out batteries.
Okay, yeah, before we do, we want to thank Horizon Hobby for sponsoring this beginner series. And this is episode 5, so if you missed any of the previous episodes, make sure you go back and check them out because there's so much helpful information.
Wealth of knowledge there.
Yeah.
All right, let's go fly.
All right, we'll see you next time. That's how you do it. That's how it's done.